you've got to look at it in two frames of mind, one from the employer's point of view and one from the employees, but on the basis that employers and employees tend to be pulling in the same direction, it probably amounts to the same thing. But from an employer's point of view, they want motivated, undistracted employees that feel engaged with their working environment. An employee, if you look at all the surveys that are coming out at the moment, they're saying that employees not only need financial advice, but they want it and they value it. So therefore I think it's an important thing to have as a form of benefit, because at the end of the day, people are paid and they need to know how to look after their money. I've referred to these surveys already. A lot of them are saying that there's huge distraction going on. I mean, there's one from the FCA saying that 90% of employees admit to having been distracted by financial affairs, and there's another one that says that 70% of employees in the UK actually admit to consuming up to a fifth of their time with financial distractions, which is massive, and there's big figures being put on it. So if you take away distractions, by definition you've got to be increasing productivity. All sorts of surveys show that the more motivated somebody is, the more productive they are. Therefore, if you're giving them financial advice and they feel that they understand where they're going financially, they're going to be more motivated and therefore they'll be more productive. So it's good for the employee, it's good for the employer, and hopefully an all-win situation. I think some are direct and some are indirect. On a regular basis, HR teams get people coming to them with financial problems that they don't know how to solve or they can't offer advice on, which has got to be a huge time soak and frustrating. If they can just pass those on to somebody else, that's got to be good news. Secondly, if they've got a provider that's dealing with several different employers, they can keep an eye on what's happening in the marketplace, what their competitors are doing. But they can also use the source of advice really for any financially related issue that might crop up. So they've got that on-tap source of advice. I think the simple answer is all of them, but I think you've got to group people into different segments of the workforce. So for example, younger employees who are just getting their first few years of career underway might be more interested in how to get a foot on the property ladder, where somebody towards the end of their working career might be interested in how they create the right retirement, where is their income going to come from, what's the most tax efficient way to plot their retirement, and in between you'll have all sorts of other categories. So I think it's giving the right advice to the right people. I think seminars are very useful to get a message out across the workforce as a whole. I think where it's commercially viable, one-to-one meetings between a source of financial advice and employee are good news. And I do think for top executives where they're being paid quite a lot and therefore more financial complexity is introduced as a result of their remuneration, I think it's important to have a pretty comprehensive service provided to those people. If you look at it selfishly from an employer's point of view, they want something that's completely holistic, because there's no point in getting a source of advice that solves 20% of the problems. Equally, I think it's important they get something that's good value for money for the company, good value for money for the employee, but also something that properly engages the provider, because there's no point having a provider where there's not a commercial aspect to it as well. Otherwise they won't be motivated in the role they involve themselves in. I think it's very important to get a professional and respectable source of advice. At the end of the day, this advice is going to be going in front of employees and representatives of the business, and the last thing you want to do is create an atmosphere that doesn't reflect well on the business. I think there's several. I think there's the risk of poor advice being given. I think potentially a provider could be seen to be selling to staff. And I think There's always the how's it work out for me in the HR team if I introduce something, and it doesn't go particularly well for whatever reason. And then there's the practicalities of the organisation, and you've got an initial workload to do the due diligence to decide on your source of advice and whether they're the right source of advice. Well, I think firstly you've got to find a provider that actually guarantees the advice that they're giving, and then the liability falls onto them and not the employer. And I think that's very important. Secondly, I would engage a pilot so that you're taking a group of employees, a small group of employees, and actually exposing them to the service for a number of months, probably 3-4 months, and then get them to offer feedback on it. Thirdly, I would make sure that the source of advice you're getting is highly professional, already operates in a similar way with quite a number of employers, and where you can gain references until you feel completely confident that you're making the right selection. They should contact Ben Simpson on 0207 710 3468 or go to our website, which is flmltd.com.